It's double-header day once again. SRH versus KKR. The first game, only 2 points separate the two teams on the points table. KKR have won 4 out of their 8, whereas the Hyderabad side have won just 3 out of their 8. It's one of those mid-table clashes where we may see KKR starting to break away from the bottom half, or will it be SRH keeping themselves in contention for a playoff spot? The last time these two teams met, KKR won that game, and they meet again in Abu Dhabi. And we meet Tom Moody on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Quick Info T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Tom, big news. Firstly, Sunil Narine has been cleared, but not featuring in the 11. How much does that surprise you?
Yeah, look, it was an interesting decision, particularly given he's been cleared for his action, which is great news for him and great news for KKR. Owen Morgan did say something in the toss that he was not fully fit. So there may be, whether it be an illness or whether it be a slight niggle or injury that they're wanting to get on top of before they bring him back into matches. So one, that he's all clear, good to go. He's good to bowl, but clearly he's just got some sort of injury concern.
Right, but assuming fitness wasn't an issue, was it a no-brainer to just get him in straight away? Or is it a case of the bowler not perhaps feeling right mentally, not in the right frame of mind mentally? Can that happen to a bowler when there's a question mark on his action at this level?
Well, I think in this situation, as I mentioned, Morgan has sort of indicated there is some sort of injury situation with him. I don't think it's a major concern. Otherwise, I'm sure we would have heard more about it. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, when a bowler is going through that emotional turmoil of having a cloud over his head with regards to his action, there is a huge mental strain. There is a challenge. Sunil Narine has sort of walked this path before. He's familiar with the pressures around and scrutiny around his action. So, I think given that he's got that sort of historical experience, he'll have a certain amount of resilience around being able to deal with this. So I'm sure as soon as he's 100% fit, they'll want him back in the side because he's such a valuable member.
Right, the toss has happened in Abu Dhabi, and David Warner won the toss and has chosen to bowl first. Is it about backing your batsman to make best use of the pitch, or is it about negating any advantage that someone like a Pat Cummins might have had at the start of the game?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting decision. You'd think in a day game you'd want to get runs on the board, particularly given the surfaces, appear to be getting a little bit slower as the day goes on. But I think what David Warner's doing here, and without sort of being inside his head and knowing exactly what he's thinking, but I think the logic here is he's backing his batting. He feels that is his strength going into this contest. So he's wanting to make sure that he's got his batsmen having to do the heavy lifting, and that is chasing whatever total that KKR get. You could argue the other way around. Well, let's get your batsman to post a formidable total and make it difficult for KKR to chase that down. But more often than not, you find teams that do feel that they are batting strong like to chase down totals.
Right, a couple of changes for the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Abdul Samad comes in. Khalil Ahmed will not be a part of this game, and Basil Thampi comes in. The last time these two teams met, of course, KKR sort of thumped their way. But now, looking at the second half of the tournament, bringing in Abdul Samad and Basil Thampi in for Khalil, what do you make of these changes for the Sunrisers Hyderabad?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting decision to leave Khalil Ahmed out, because he has got a very good strike rate of taking wickets. Yes, at times he can be a little bit expensive, but so can a lot of young bowlers. But what he does do is he gives you strike power. So I'm a little bit surprised that they've left him out purely on the basis that he does take wickets. If you look at the number of wickets he takes per the games he's played in the IPL, it is up amongst the best that is going around, certainly within all the young bowlers that are playing in the IPL. And what I mean young, bowlers that have been around for 2 or 3 years. Basil Dumpy, it's his first game, so it's a big occasion for him. He's a different style of bowler. He's obviously not left arm, but he's lively in pace. But, he'll have certainly pressure on him because it's his first game in the tournament. He'll be wanting to make an impression.
Also, a way of telling Vijay Shankar that while he may not have bowled in the last 2 games, they do expect runs from him in the lower order because that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, look, he needs to step up. There's no question about that. Look, at the end of the day, you only have to cast yourself back 12 months or just short of 12 months. And Vijay Shankar was batting 4 for India in a World Cup. I know it was a 50-over World Cup, but still, he was in the World Cup squad and seen as one of India's best one-day batsmen. And, he needs to start delivering with his performances, which reflects I suppose the faith the national selectors had in him during that period of time. Whether he's bowling or not is not relevant. I think what is relevant is he is a very good player, and he needs to start showing that by results on the scoreboard.
Now, one problem that a lot of teams face, since there are only 4 foreigners allowed, is to be able to fit in their best. Mohammad Nabi, an absolute star in this format, cannot find a place in this lineup. How do you fit him in? Because you're not going to drop Warner, Williamson, Rashid. Could Bairstow have been one possibility? Maybe get him out and get Nabi in, or is that too outlandish a thought?
No, I don't think it is. I think all the 3 batsmen need to make sure they're pretty consistent with their runs, purely because the Sunrisers have got that dilemma. If they do look at Bairstow as a potential option to make way for Nabi, I think that the bottom line to it is that there's 2 issues. One is all the batsmen need to be showing consistency of form, because it'll be so easy to make that strategic change. And I think the second thing is, if the conditions and if the opponent you play against and it points at that it's totally outweighs the logic of playing 3 overseas batsmen where a spinner is an absolute must pick in Mohammad Nabi, I think it's a no-brainer. I think you have to pick Mohammad Nabi and make that difficult decision and communicate that difficult decision to whoever it is, that player that you leave out, because ultimately what you're always trying to do is pick the best playing 11, regardless of reputation, regardless of what has happened in recent past. What is your best playing 11 is going to win that game, because that's what that is what you're getting on the bus for, to go to the ground, is to win that contest against KKR. So if you feel that Nabi should be in that 11, well, you make way with one of those 4 overseas players to make that happen.
Could one way to do that have been to get either a Williamson or a Manish Pandey to join Warner at the top? Is it so much of a difference to bat 3 or bat at the top of the order?
I don't think that's the issue. I don't think that's the issue at all, is, who's going to fill the opening position, because in T20 cricket, if you asked a room full of batsmen whether they'd like to open the batting in a T20 game, every single one of them would put their hand up, because it is the sweet spot in the batting order in T20 cricket. The hardest spot to bat is at 5, 6 and 7. They're the hardest spots to bat, because the game is really dictating how you have to play at that point. Opening the batting in T20 cricket, you've got a hard new ball. A white ball doesn't tend to do a huge amount in the air or off the surface in these T20 matches, and you've got the field restrictions for 6 overs. So it is really what we would call the business class lounge of the batting order. It's very comfortable, and you get a chance to, get your innings up and running. You've got 120 balls to bat.
Right. Abdul Samad has been given a boarding pass for this flight. Is it more a batting move than a bowling move? Because there are a few left-handers in the KKR batting lineup. So they've brought a leg spinner in, Abdul Samad. What do you make of that move?
Yeah, look, I think I think it's a bit of both, really. He comes with a reputation of being a power hitter, someone that can hit the ball out the ground. So I see it as an option. They're wanting that ability in the middle to late overs, which is an area that Sunrisers have been searching for, not only this season, but for a few seasons. And I think he's already shown that he's more than capable of bowling some useful leg spin. So I think that, his inclusion is covering for, the absence, obviously, of a specialist spinner in Nadeem, who, it would have been an absolute guarantee for those 4 overs.
Right, now let's take a look at the KKR 11. A couple of changes for the new captain, Eoin Morgan, as well, who seems to perhaps have a little more faith in Kuldeep Yadav than the earlier leadership, if I may. Kuldeep Yadav comes in, and so does Loki Ferguson for Prasidh Krishna and Chris Green. Good move?
Yeah, look, I think it is a good move. We talked about this in the pre-game with regards to Kuldeep, and I think he needs to be playing in every game from this point on for KKR. We know the surfaces are going to, probably lend to a little bit more spin and make it harder for batsmen to get the slower bowlers away. And I think the inclusion of Lockie Ferguson is a good one ahead of Green, because Kuldeep, even though he's a different style of bowler, can certainly cover the tracks that Chris Green is going to be covering as an off spinner. Lockie Ferguson gives them an explosive international fast bowler to back up Pat Cummins.
Right. What does the inclusion of Kuldeep Yadav mean for himself mentally? I mean, as a coach, what would the dialogue have been with Kuldeep Yadav when he was warming the bench?
I think it would have been a slow process, because he's been on the bench for a couple of weeks. So I think it would have been a process of trying to, rebuild his confidence, rethink through his strategy to how he's looking to bowl in these conditions in the UAE. What are the areas he's looking to, develop? What are the areas that he feels vulnerable where you can support him? Understand what he's thinking from a bowling perspective, where, he feels his best field sets are for the left and right hand matchups that he may have. So I think it is a case of I suppose trusting his skill, but creating an environment for him to feel that he can bowl without the fear of failure, because that is for any bowler or any batsman for that matter in this sort of helter-skelter T20 environment, and particularly the IPL, which is such a high profile and highly scrutinized tournament. You want to create a soft landing for players that may be vulnerable with failure. So look, everyone is going to fail at some point. It's just a case of making sure that when they do have a setback, they have the ability to bounce back quickly, and accepting that the setback or the poor performance is not a big deal. What is more important is making sure how you respond to that and what your answer is. And he's got a great opportunity now to respond to being left out of the side and say, well, you've missed me for a few games, and today's performance, I hope, is a little nudge in the side to say, well, maybe I should have been playing the last couple of games.
Right, it's still not late. They still have a few games left and make it to the playoffs. But there's more happening in that KKR setup. A change in captaincy halfway through. Dinesh Karthik unselfishly stepping aside to bring Morgan in. What does this kind of shift in power do to the dynamics of the team? You've seen it when Dhawan decided to step down and hand it over to Sammy. I think in 2014 it was. How does the dynamic change within the team?
It doesn't really change a huge amount, particularly when you've got a captain of the reputation of an Eoin Morgan. A lot of people in the dressing room would probably be thinking at the beginning of the tournament that, wow, isn't it great to have a World Cup winning captain and a highly respected captain in Eoin Morgan in our dressing room to start with, just as a batsman, as a senior player. But if suddenly from one week to the next, he goes from that batsman senior player to batsman captain, I think is a minimal switch. And knowing Eoin Morgan and his personality, he would make that transition a very smooth transition, because he's a very calm, very laid back and relaxed character that would make sure there's very little fuss with that transition. And I think if anything, it'll inject a little bit of excitement and positivity around the group, because they'll be thinking, oh wow, okay, we've now got Owen as our leader, and he's been so successful with England. Let's hope that his magic rubs off on us.
Right, now a little bit on the KKR bowling. Cummins, of course, a huge force in red ball cricket, but in the IPL, he seems to have lost a bit of his sting, maybe not as effective as he'd like to be. How would you use Loki Ferguson in? It's his first game. Would you then straight away ask him to bowl the early overs, or get Cummins in for the start and then use Loki Ferguson in the middle overs?
I think Lockie Ferguson has been most effective as an impact bowler whenever he has played for KKR, or whenever he's played for New Zealand. He's used more as that impact player, someone that comes in and tries to take a wicket, more so at the back end of power play in the middle of the innings, where wickets can be very valuable. So I would imagine that Pat Cummins will be still used as the specialist, impact bowler at the front end of the power play to try to take wickets. Obviously, with the way that Sunrisers Hyderabad are set up, if Pat Cummins can remove one, or if not two, of their top three in that power play, it really does expose that middle order. And to have someone like Lockie Ferguson coming in behind that, it will be a significant plus for KKR.
Right, there's a very interesting matchup, which is Pat Cummins versus Bairstow. Now, Bairstow seems to have struggled a little bit with the incoming delivery. That happened in the last game as well against KKR. It seems to be a glaring weakness in his game. He averages 18 to such incomoming deliveries. Cummins has bowled in 3 T20s to Bairstow and has dismissed him twice. Straight away attack Bairstow with that incoming delivery from Cummins.
Yeah, look, most teams, will be trying to target the likes of Johnny Bairstow with that ball that comes back sharply, and it's not unusual that a power hitter, top order power hitter like Johnny Bairstow has a little bit of a chink in his armour there, because most power hitters like to get their hands free away from their body, which gives them that power, gives them that access to the ball. Aaron Finch is a carbon copy, very similar technically to Johnny Bairstow when it comes to that ball coming back in. They're both pretty vulnerable. Pat Cummins will definitely try to set him up with that. That is a ball of strength for Pat Cummins, where he can get the ball to seam back with a new hard white ball. So you can guarantee that Johnny Bairstow, leading into this contest, will be fully aware of what Pat Cummins is going to try to do, and he'll have some sort of strategy to combat that, whether that's bat out of his crease, whether that's maybe change his guard, or just be really conscious of playing as straight as he possibly can early on.
Right. Just a quick word on Shubman Gill as opener. Now, if you look at KKR's stats in the power play, they're scoring at 7.1 runs per over. Shubman Gill's, he's tried very hard to hit that fourth and fifth gear. It hasn't quite happened. He's batted at a strike rate of 120. Is it too much of a move to maybe ask him to go down the order and have two attacking options at the top, Rahul Tripathi and maybe somebody else from the lineup?
No, I don't think at all. I think Shubman Gill is the last piece of the puzzle they need to be worrying about. I think if you look at the top order of all the opening batsmen in this IPL, it'll give you a true reflection of how challenging it has been for the top order. David Warner, who's arguably one of the most successful opening batsmen in the history of IPL, his strike rate is in that sort of low 120s as well. So I wouldn't be concerning myself with Shubman Gill. I'd be more concerned about, making sure that he continues to maintain that 120 to 130 strike rate, but more importantly, build the base for the team, build a solid base for the team so their power hitters can come in and enjoy the foundation that he's created, because they're set up that way, KKR, where they've got the likes of Morgan and Russell in that middle, which can really have an impact. And Dinesh Karthik now, with the freedom of no captaincy, there is, a lot of power in that middle order. So Shubman Gill needs to continue to do what he's doing, and that is just, build that solid foundation.
Now that DK isn't deciding the opening, the batting order, where should he be playing? I mean, for the first half of the tournament, we kept saying DK is a finisher, he's a finisher. Now that the captain's changed, where should Morgan send him into bat?
Well, I think we all sort of concur that his best position is that sort of number 5 position, where he's coming in after around about that 10th, 12th over, where he can steer the game home and finish it, or set a formidable total. The last thing you want, whether it's with Dinesh Karthik or with any batsman, is having this sort of scrambled batting order where people don't know where they're coming in on any given day. I think that clarity around what your role is and having consistency around that is really, really important in any franchise team. And I think for Dinesh Karthik, particularly given that he's had quite a challenging emotional IPL to this point, having to make such a difficult decision to step away as captain, I think that stability will enable him to, or certainly for him and for KKR, to get the very best out of him as a batsman.
Nitish Rana has looked a pale shadow of himself in the past. He's shown that spark, especially in T20 cricket, but somehow he just hasn't managed to get it going this season. What's happening, and how much is it hurting KKR's fortunes?
Well, we've seen a glimpse of brilliance from him. We've seen his potential. A couple of the shots that he's played have been questionable with regards to just the logic and the timing behind, the big shots that he's playing. I think in a way that he just needs to rein his game back a little bit, just to give himself a chance to be able to really have an impact as a top order player. And again, without understanding his role, we don't know what the leadership of McCullum and Morgan are saying to him. They might be saying to him, look, we want you to go out there. We want you to, to take it on from the get-go and just express yourself. And we accept that you're going to, have a few setbacks playing that way. Or they're saying the complete opposite. They're saying what I'm saying, and that is just give yourself a chance to get in before you try to take and tear the attack apart. So again, if I'm looking at it, I'd be thinking, well, just take a deep breath, set your innings up, and then launch your attack.
Is that the kind of advice you'd have for Andre Russell as well? Is he playing on reputation? Is he allowing his ego to come in the way? Because we've seen opposition teams bringing their strike bowler back to trouble Russell. He got out to Bumrah trying to hit him out of the park, but that didn't quite work. I mean, look at Andre Russell this season so far, dismissed by the quicks. Bumrah, there's Rabada as well, Bumrah twice. So is that a trend? And what do you tell Andre Russell? Maybe take a leaf out of Kieron Pollard's book?
Well, I think what you tell him is there's clearly a strategy that is being set up whenever he comes into bat, because he is such a threat. And again, Andre Russell, you need to protect his confidence and protect his match winning ability. So I wouldn't be being too harsh on him at all. If anything, I'd be trying to be as positive as I possibly can with him, and just discuss what the tactics the opposition are having, and reassess what his tactics are to the way he's going to play. Now, what he should do is identify who are the major threats in the opposition that may come back to target him. Sunrisers today, it won't be a pace bowler. It'll be more likely Rashid Khan. So, because Sunrisers don't really possess that fast bowler that bowls that 140 to 150. So it'll be more likely Rashid Khan would be an over or two of him would be held back to really make sure that he takes down Andre Russell before there's too much damage. So recognise the threat, and then just give yourself a chance to get in and take on the bowlers that you feel that you can really, take apart. But just respect those ones that, have got that reputation and quality, like your Rabadas, like your Bumrahs and your Rashid Khans.
Right. Russell does have a strike rate of about 184 against Rashid, but Rashid has dismissed him twice in the IPL. Even the others have struggled a little bit. Owen Morgan, Dinesh Karthik, Shubman Gill and Nitish Rana have a strike rate of less than 120 against Rashid Khan. And so he does become, not just by numbers, but by ability and skill, he becomes Hyderabad's strike bowler. But KKR batting first, what score do you think SRH will be okay chasing on this pitch?
Well, I seem to be saying 160 quite regularly, but I think that's becoming the the number that is going to be quite a challenging obstacle. So I think that KKR will be looking to score between 160 and 170. Sunrisers will be certainly looking to get them south of 160. If they can restrict them to south of 160, that they've done a good job.
Right, if they can do that, they can go north of the points table. That's what they shall be hoping. Looking for their fourth win, the Sunrisers Hyderabad. But we're done with this pre-game show. We will see Tom Moody once again on Whirlpool presents ESPN Cricket 4 T20 timeout powered by Dell at the end of the first innings, right here on ESPN Cricket 4. See you then.